welcome to episode 9. We've got Dom Carter with us today from Serotonin. Serotonin do our marketing. We've had Claire on in the past, but thought important to get Dom on as well, get a different perspective, and a few things have happened since we had Claire on that I want to drill you about, so hopefully can get into that. You've had a bit of a different, from what I've read, a bit of a different background into marketing. Was it geology you studied at uni?
Yeah, I studied geology at Plymouth University. Right. I did that because I feel like it's a really good subject to do if you're interested, you're good at sciences, or you're just generally curious about like the world, because it's got all the best bits of all the different sciences. Yeah. Kind of rolled into one. And then I thought I was going to be, I didn't know if I was going to be a geologist. Yeah. But I definitely thought that having something where you'd have a background that allows you to then move into like oil and gas would be quite good. But then literally I think the year that I graduated, the oil and gas market completely crashed. Wow. So it sent me on a completely different course.
And what was that? What was the next course?
Just doing sales, what I was good at. So I ended up doing sales. So actually in my second year of university, had no money. Wanted to travel, but couldn't afford to travel. And so I really wanted to go to Amsterdam with my mates. And I ended up booking like a hostel in Amsterdam, like 25 rooms, phoned them up, the Hans Brinker hostel in Amsterdam, and like semi-booked a coach, and then went around my halls of residence to all my mates, selling like little raffle tickets. Amazing. Like 100 quid each. End up having 50 people on a coach that went to Amsterdam. Wow. Made some money for that. Got in loads of trouble with the uni. But the reason that it was successful was because I promoted it through Facebook. So you remember like back when like Facebook groups was a big thing? Yeah. And like now no one uses Facebook, but Facebook groups was a big thing. And I had a big Facebook group with like 1,000 like uni students in it, and I just hammered it in there. Yeah. And yeah, like I made like a couple grand from that. And then that was kind of what taught me how to first start doing marketing. I don't even think I really knew that was marketing in the beginning. Yeah. And then the second year, the third year of uni, or the second year, I tried to run that trip. The university didn't let me because I had no ABTA license. Right. It was completely like deregulated, like just taking like 80 students away for like a weekend. Bit of risk there. Yeah. So I did it in conjunction with them and a tour operator, an official like tour operator. And then that was really successful. I think about 200 people went from my university that year. And then when I finished university that summer and I couldn't get a job in oil and gas, I tapped up that tour operator and said, "Look, let me come and do sales for you. Like I'm good at selling. Like I understand the market, I understand the model." So I think after about 2 months of finishing university, I got a job with them, and they were based in Didsbury. Wow. So that's what brought me to Manchester. Oh, and the whole time, like I started there, I was genuinely thinking like, all right, 6 months and I'll go and do a master's somewhere, or I'll try and do like further education, or try and get a job in oil and gas. And yeah, that was 12 years ago now. Wow. And that group that you started, were you kind of aware of what you were creating or what you were learning then, or was it just kind of... No idea. Like, again, I think it's... I just saw that as like a good vehicle to be able to promote something. Yeah. But again, like I'd never studied marketing. Like if you'd asked me to define what marketing was, probably wouldn't be able to tell you. Yeah. And I had no idea of like, I guess like that was going to set me on this journey to where I am now. But yeah, again, like, even when I was in that role at that company, I didn't expect me to be there for a long time. I didn't realize like that whole time I was just learning like skills in sales, skills in operations, how to like logistically plan things, do critical thinking. And where did that lead you to? Did that kind of define you? I wanted sacked. A career? Oh, right, okay. Yeah. What for? Again, I think it was just real inexperience on my part. So I was doing really well on the sales side. Yeah. I was very disheartened by the operations side of it. I wasn't happy with the money that I was making. And like I was 21, 22, 23 sort of age, and I was super naive. I had no experience in work, had no idea about like the politics and how you actually have to like treat people and you have to be nice to people in order to get what you want. And I felt very much like, I guess I was trying to like be like a big fish in a small pond really. And they obviously kept me on during that second summer that I worked there, did all my sales, and then they sacked me. And again, if I look back now with like the knowledge I have, I can see that I had all like the kind of like marks of like a very toxic person in that business just because I was so unhappy. But I didn't realize, I was so unaware that I was like really unhappy and that was affecting everybody around me. And I feel like it's really, really difficult. And like people I speak to, it's really difficult to leave your first job because you don't know like what else is out there and you don't know how to do that. But yeah, I got sacked from there. And then, ironically, I got hired by their biggest competitor.
Wow.
So by a company called Invasion, which isn't going anymore, but it was run by a guy called Nick Steert, who now runs a festival called Wellnergy down in London and Manchester. You might have heard of it. Yeah. And he's still like a really good friend. But yeah, like that, I met Nick ironically when I was working as like the sales manager for this other travel company.
Yeah.
And we were trying to do like some digging on how they had like such good prices with suppliers. And I ended up setting up a fake meeting with him, going to meet him pretending to be like a potential client. And again, I would never do this now. Like I look back and I'm like, what the hell was I thinking? Like, it's so wrong. Or like,
was this just off your own back? Or
this is just off
like...
my own back. Yeah, I met him at like a cafe somewhere in Liverpool, pretending to like want to run like a trip with him and his company. And like I wore like glasses and like slicked my hair back. And he went mental when he found out that it was me afterwards. Like nothing came of it. But yeah. But when I got sacked, I messaged him, and I was like, look, this is where I'm at now. Like, and I think we cleared the water because we'd always seen each other like networking events and things like that, and we knew the same people like at the different like destination management companies. So we all kind of knew the same people. So we cleared the water, and I messaged him saying like, look, I've lost my job, but I've got good sales skills. I know the industry inside out. Do you want to come and meet? Do you want to come and have a meeting, and we can see if we can work something out? So they hired me, as like their head of sales and marketing. The sales side I knew what to do. The marketing side I had no idea. But again, that was literally just when sort of like Instagram was coming into play. Twitter was a big thing because everyone was like about getting retweets and like impressions. Yeah. And I remember the person who was in charge of the marketing at the time, they were very, very like militant at the time about you have to do 3 posts on Twitter a day, you have to do 3 posts on Instagram a day, you have to do 3 posts on Facebook a day. And that wasn't really, it was good for occupying good real estate, but I don't think it did much in terms of like growth of the platforms. And it was whilst I was there, I kind of realized that organic growth is fine, like organic marketing on these channels is okay, but it's a lot of time and effort for very little reward, because all you're doing is just paying more content onto the platforms. So that's when I decided that actually what I was going to spend my time doing was getting really good at understanding how the paid side of the marketing works. So I think I would have been like 24, 25 at the time. So meta advertising still kind of very, very basic in its own formats. And I spent days and nights, weeks, watching YouTube tutorials on how to build Facebook campaigns, on how to build Google campaigns. And then the company I was at had never really done any paid. So I made it my mission to actually just elevate their paid media offering, because they were spending all this time, all this resource. They had a team of like 3 or 4 people constantly posting on Twitter, on Instagram, on Facebook, across like 5 or 6 different travel brands. But they were only really recording like impressions and clicks to a website. But I was like, okay, well, if we could take some of that value of that resource and put that into paid advertising, we can be so much more efficient. And yeah, off the back of that, that's how I honed my skills.
And what was that? Was that a conscious decision that did you kind of know what you were? I'm going to spend my own time learning this, or I've got a value to the business, or was you just interested in it?
It was knowing that there was going to be a big value to that business by doing that, because they weren't doing it. And I knew that their competition were, even though that was like a completely unknown territory for me. So I had no idea what paid marketing was at the time. I had no idea like how powerful Facebook advertising could be. But I could see the value in activating it for this company, and then being able to provide that back. But I also knew that, because I guess I'd been burned before, like, my time here might not last forever. So I need to get really, really good at something. And I was really concerned because I was kind of just a good generalist at sales. Like I didn't really have a background in marketing. I could talk to people and I understood how to sell and kind of understood like logistics and operations a bit, but I didn't have like a value add from any kind of niche. So that's when I thought, okay, well, I need to get really, really good at something, because my geology degree's gone now. It's been 3 or 4 years since I've ever looked at, anything to do with that. I need to try and find a new area to kind of get really good at. And I knew that being a generalist wasn't going to get me very, very far. So that's when I sort of decided that I got an opportunity. I'm going to spend my time now just understanding how these platforms work. I've got a good sandbox where I can go and test it out within this company, and I can make it really good.
And was, after being sacked from your first position, were you aware at the time of like the characteristics that got you sacked, and did you change that into your second role, or was it you're just maturing and changing anyway?
I learned massively like from it. Maybe not for like a couple of years after. I think I was still quite bitter and shocked by it, and it took me a while, and it took me like actually to be in a position where I was managing people to understand like and see like those similar traits and understand how that affects everything.
And do you think that was because you felt undervalued, or what was the reason behind that behaviour, do you think?
I think firstly behind being undervalued, not appreciated within the role, not provided any kind of guidance on this is where you are now, this is where we see you in the company in 5 years. So not having like a really clear, transparent roadmap, I think was one of those things, because again, I love managing expectations. I like knowing where I stand. And then I feel like now with my team, I try and give that back as much as possible. And I think if you're not sure where you stand, you're not going to be able to deliver your best because you're not sure where your kind of remit or scope lies. So yeah, I think that greatly frustrated me at the time.
In that second role, were you kind of upfront about your expectations there, or was that still when you were learning?
It was, again, I think Nick had built a really good business, and he'd built it kind of by not having much of a game plan. He had a brilliant idea for this company, kind of modeled off of this other company that I was at previously. But I think there was a lot more kind of like better culture, better passion behind it. And it had a bit more, I guess, like you were able to be a bit more creative within your role. So when I kind of started there, sure, I was head of sales and marketing, but the kind of brief that I had was go and try anything out, find out what works, and then apply that. So my brief was a lot more broad, whereas in the other place it was very much do sales. That's it. Yeah.
And what did that teach you? What were you learning then about people at that time?
So again, I think that what I discovered most about people, I think then was everybody's got different drivers behind it. So coming from a sales background, everything was very money motivated or money oriented. Working at this second travel company, Invasion, there were a lot of people there who are just purely passionate about seeing people happy and go on travel and things like that. So understanding there's different motivators behind different people within that organization is obviously going to have an impact on how they operate in day-to-day life. So yeah, not everybody wants like loud salespeople on the calls or getting rowdy on like a Friday afternoon.
Yeah, 100%. I think, did you know at the time that you were building a picture of what your company would want to look like? Did you kind of know you were going to set your own company up, or was that an aspiration at that time, or no?
So there was always an aspiration to try and do something by myself. So when I was at that company, they'd hired a videographer to join the team. Basically, we realized that, okay, well, if advertising or paid media is the way forward, then we also need to be able to supply that with our own content. So they'd hired a videographer at the time called Chris Townsend, and between us and the shareholders of that travel company, we basically decided, okay, well, what we'll try and do is create like a little sub-agency. So that agency can be subcontracted to provide services to the travel company, and it's like sub-brands underneath it. But then it can also work for third-party businesses and create external clients. We can just see how that grows. And again, that flexibility extended by the shareholders of Invasion was brilliant, because it allowed you just to have a good idea and then run with it and see what happens. And so we started that, and that was called What Marketing, which is now What Media, which is still going. And they're doing really well. I think they've got a team of about 30 people. I think they opened an office in like the States like last week. And Chris is still running that by himself, which is amazing. But at the time when we'd started it, I think Chris and I had a very minority shareholding in that company. And again, I was 25, 26 at the time. I think Chris was about the same age. And we had no idea about like what shares were or how to run a company, the difference between A class and B class. And we got a bit, I guess, like steamrolled by the shareholders of Invasion at the time. And for me, I didn't have enough control over that company to be able to then do what I wanted to do with it, take it in the direction that I wanted to take it. And I then left. And that's when I left that company.
And what was that, again, what was that learning experience? Did you learn enough about to have control and equity in shares? Were you learning about that at the time?
Learning about it, but not really understanding it.
Yeah.
And not really. And again, I think, I was like 26 at the time. I had no money, and lawyers cost money. So it was kind of lost. Like, I can't really win in this scenario. But what I did learn was that if I'm going to do something, I need to either do it by myself or I need to do it with someone who I'm completely aligned with. And again, I felt confidence in kind of stepping away from that scenario because at that point I'd honed my skills within like advertising. I knew that I was solid at running campaigns in Meta and Google. I knew how to build campaigns. I knew how to win business. So I wasn't afraid of moving away then. And then that's when I joined a larger media agency in Manchester, and that's where I met Claire.
So what was that next role in the agency?
Sorry, mate.
No, you're all good.
So what was that next role in the agency?
So that next role in the agency, so that's when I moved into the role of head of media. So at the time, so we were working at a company, so the company was called Cube 3. Claire had been there for about 6 years when I joined, and she was the marketing director there, and she'd built a really good marketing team. And they were working on some incredible accounts like Revolution Bars Group, Rivs to Cuba, Rohan, and the content that they were producing was exceptional. And again, I think they were very much stuck in that way that my former company was stuck in, where producing lots of content, putting it on different platforms, but then not really seeing strong, tangible effects from it, or not being able to actually see like the potential of amplification from that. So when I came in as like head of media role, my objective was basically just to apply strategies to every single client that is supported by paid mechanics, and then be able to offer some KPIs to the clients off the back of it that actually then generate some results that you can drive revenue against.
And when you went into that role, how long was it before you kind of aligned with Claire, do you think?
2 weeks.
Yeah,
like almost instantly. I think something clicked. I think she needed someone who was providing like the thought place that I was within like understanding how to take the content and the creative and then put additional value behind that. But then also someone who she could bounce ideas off of. Like, again, like if Claire and I go into a room and we're delivering a presentation or a pitch, it's exceptional. Like, you've seen it for yourself, right? And like, we always try and make some theatre around it, like when we're doing it ourselves. And I feel like that kind of like double pairing is kind of like one of the things that kind of set us apart, especially within this agency, right? Like we were working together for about 12, 18 months and we were winning new business all the time. We were upselling new clients. We were bringing on people. We created an amazing department between us. And again, I think no one else was doing things in the same way that we were. Yeah. But it's just because we had that good energy.
And can you remember the first conversation of we need to do this on our own?
I think we'd always joked about it.
Yeah.
Like, I remember that there was one time at that agency when I think they were doing some sort of like internal restructure, and we had to do a presentation about where like the marketing department within that agency was, and then where we were going to like take it. And then again, we did a solid deck, like 80 pages, like really thorough commercials, everything like that, presented it. And then I think it was one of those things where one of the people that we were presenting it to at the time, they got hung up about like two things on one slide, like halfway through. Like they got hung up on one bit of it that's like less than 5% of it, as opposed to the other 95%. And I just remember like feeling a bit deflated, put loads of work in, and that's when we started joking, like, she could do it ourselves, do it better. And then I think Claire then left that business just under 18 months after I'd been there. She went freelance, and then she started working with like really cool clients off her own back, like Celebrity Cruises and a handful of hospitality brands as well. Virgin Galactic was one of her clients, and I could see her working on all these cool brands independently. And then that's why I kind of got the feeling that maybe I should move on as well.
Yeah. And then what was the next step then? Did you kind of approach Claire and say, let's do this, or how did that look?
No, it wasn't as clear cut as that. I think I went freelance. I got basically I think I worked out that I needed £2,000 a month to live if I was going to go freelance. So my goal was to try and secure £2,000 worth of like incoming contracts from people. Yeah. And then was also to save up £2,000 in like my bank account because I had no money at the time. Like I was like in debt, if anything. So I saved up like £2,000. And then I secured £2,000 in contracts. So I had like one contract paying me £1,000 a month just doing the social media and ads. And then I had two other contracts paying me £500 a month. They were just for me doing ads and some strategy. And then those contracts were like 3-month contracts. They were 3-month contracts. So that way I knew that if everything like went bad, then I'd have like 4 months run rate until I was officially broke. So I started working with these clients. The whole time Claire and I are having conversations, like we're two freelancers now, we're good friends. We've got potential to cross-sell clients between us. So we started doing that. So I started sending some work her way. She brought me on celebrity cruises. And we didn't really talk about the idea of starting a company between us until maybe like 6 months in. So I think I probably went freelance around April, May time. And then it wasn't until September, October until we really started something. And again, from our side, it just kind of made sense. We kind of operated in stealth mode. We weren't called Serotonin. We were just using a limited company that Claire had set up. But it started to work. Yeah. We started seeing that we could actually cross-sell quite easily. Again, just the duo of us being in the same room together, like pitching clients, selling strategy, her from creative, myself from like the media side of it, providing that together, I think was really valuable to the people that we were working with at the time. And then we started bringing on more business. And then we realized towards late November that year that we needed to hire some people and that this was actually going to start moving in the right direction.
Can you remember at the time, I remember when I was first starting out, I'd go through periods, I did exactly what you did. If I can just get, I think it was £1,000 a month, like I can survive. Yeah. And then there were months where I didn't get it. What kind of, were you fearful of anything at that time, or was it kind of just exciting and you were paying for yourself, it was working?
Super fearful, I think. Yeah. But I think that's good, right? And you're like that's the fear that makes you move a bit more considerately. I remember at the time we were very shrewd, so like we wouldn't spend money on anything because we were worried about it. Like we weren't really paying ourselves much. I remember like the biggest treat was like on a Friday after work if we'd won a client that week. And again, this would be in 2019, like sometime between like September and like November. If we had a good week, if we won a client, like our like biggest expense would be going like down to like San Carlo downstairs, having a glass of like champagne, like to celebrate. But I think we kind of knew that our goal was going to be to try and create something. And so from that, we didn't want to start investing in things we didn't know what that contribution was going to lead towards.
And what was as it was getting into being a proper business, what was some of because I guess that's a lot different from being in finance. You're going to have to get in from getting freelance. There's all like the finance side of it. How did you manage that early doors?
So I remember we were sat in WeWork and we were trying to work out, okay, like incomes, outgoings, costs, expenditure, like, because we were in the WeWork at the time. I think I had like a freelance or like a co-working desk in there, and we were trying to work out, okay, well, if we're going to make it like an official entity, then we want like an actual studio space or an office, and we're trying to work out how much is like an office space in WeWork going to cost us. And I think that it was like we had like a 2-person studio, really tiny, like smaller than this room. It's like half the size of this room. 2 desks, and I think it was working out like 520 quid a month. And that's when I realized, okay, we're going to start doing these, like treating this as a proper business. We need to assign our roles. And again, I think coming from like spreadsheets, data background, I was like, wow, I'm going to have to be the finance person here. Which again, I think as we've got bigger, has kind of worked in a good way because, as you all know, like, you always have to chase people, chase clients for payments and things like that. And I think as Serotonin's grown, we've definitely taken our roles as like good cop, bad cop. And I'm always like joking that I'm the finance person sitting in the corner, chasing people for payments, having difficult conversations. Whereas, we kind of assigned those roles early on.
And what did that look like as you grew out of the WeWork place? I'm guessing at this time you had clients and you knew it was working. Like, what did your aspirations change as you were growing?
So we were in WeWork up until, so we hired our first 2 members of staff. So we had like the 2-person desk in WeWork, which was great. That was October, November time, 2019. And then we realized we needed to hire people. And so we made 2 hires, Dan and Casey, who are still with us now, which is great. And that was about early December. But then we needed a bigger office. So we needed a bigger studio space in WeWork. So we got a big 6-person one. And again, we're all about like having a nice brand, making things look good. So we're okay, well, we can afford to spend 300 quid on a cool sofa and some nice lights and some plants and actually make it feel like a nice office. And it was a really cool place to be, despite the fact it was in a WeWork. But yeah, the challenge with WeWork is that, or any kind of co-working space like that, is that every time you hire someone, you have to then buy a new desk. Yeah. So if you wanted to make 3 hires, it's not just the salaries. Yeah. It's also like 400 quid plus per person for the desk space as well. So that really kind of constrains your ability to scale. Yeah. So we knew that we weren't going to stay at WeWork long term. And then obviously the pandemic happened, which again was a good thing, bad thing for us. Like it got us out of WeWork. We were working at home. And I think when the pandemic happened, there was about 5 of us in the team. And then, fast forward, was it about 11 months later, so March 2021, we were a team of about 10. So we had some significant growth during that period, but also we couldn't go back to WeWork.
Yeah. What was, just on that pandemic, because it's been different for loads of companies, did you find that the first months were scary, but then you kind of really benefited from it? Or...
Yeah, in a nutshell, yes. But again, I think that the first few months, everybody was a bit like considerably frustrating because you didn't know which way it was going to go. Because again, you're just in uncharted territory. Yeah. At the time, I think if you were to draw a pie chart of all of our clients, I'd say maybe 50% were in real estate, 35% was celebrity cruises, and then everything else was just other e-com brands or something like that. And yeah, as soon as the pandemic happened, obviously no one's going traveling. The share prices for like Royal Caribbean just plummeted. Yeah. And we lost 35% of our business overnight. So it was quite concerning. I remember at the time, I think we had about £25,000 in the bank account at what was going to be Serotonin. I was doing the calculations I've been doing when I went freelance. Right? Okay, yeah. How long until we get that? Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I think at the beginning it was scary. And I remember the first 10, 14 days of that period, I was on the phone to all of our clients within real estate, like different stakeholders within the asset leasing businesses, doing the same pitch and presentation, like why you shouldn't turn off your ads, why you still need us. Yeah. And again, I think half of it was, I believe they probably did need us, and the other half was like, well, I need them to keep us going as well. We gave it a bit of time, and after about 4 weeks, real estate didn't really shut down. People were doing virtual viewings, we could keep on the real estate part of the business, which is hugely successful. So we didn't really need to pivot too much of our strategy. We didn't need to let anyone go. I think we put some of our team on furlough for 2 days a week or something like that, which was also really helpful for us. Yeah. And then as the pandemic started to set into its flow, 3 or 4 months in, we then started to bring on board more e-com clients. And started supporting a few hospitality clients as well, like Rudy's. Yeah. So it started to kind of even out a bit, and then we ended up just winning our biggest clients during the pandemic as well. And we say all the time how we won 3 or 4 huge clients during the pandemic that we never would have won any other time. Yeah. We were a team of 5-6 people at the time. They got introduced to us or referred to us because they weren't able to go and network or meet with other people that could introduce them to other bigger New York or Milan or LA agencies. And it completely leveled the playing field. So we had a huge enterprise client that we won. And I remember doing the pitch process. It was 5 pitches. And we were up against their incumbent agency who were in New York. We were up against an agency in Milan and an agency in London. And we were 5 people. I think the next smallest agency was 250 people. Wow. And even when we won, I remember on the handover call, the agency who we were taking them from and doing the handover, they had 10 people on the call. That was double the amount of people we had in the business. Yeah. But I think we won that because, again, we put a lot of time and effort into the plan and the presentation. It meant a lot to us. Also, the strategy and the knowledge base was coming from myself, Dan, and 2 other people in the business who were going to be involved in that account as well. Yeah. It's not just it was handed down, placed in front of a B team or a C team, and then they were let to run with it. But then also because of the fact that no one could go into an office, all of the pitch meetings were happening on video call over a kitchen table. So it was literally my kitchen table versus everyone else's kitchen table. Yeah. Whereas in the real world, they would have flown them over to New York, shown them their amazing offices on 5th Avenue or somewhere, really wowed them. Yeah. we didn't have that benefit at the time. So I think that really helped us win.
And what did that teach you about business at that time, do you think?
That it's still super competitive. That I think that a lot of people get distracted by like bright lights or like big names in an agency or within business, but really like what matters is the actual content they put in front of people. And I think a lot of people still probably do get distracted because they want to work with a big name or a network agency, when in reality it might not be the perfect match.
Yeah, 100%. So then coming out of COVID, back into an office, I'm guessing, a bigger office. Did you move then at that point?
Yes, in March 2021. So again, Claire and I had always said we're going to be an office-based company because culture is really important to the both of us. We came from places where the culture wasn't amazing and it wasn't something that we ever wanted to replicate. And so I don't truly believe that you can have a great company culture if everyone is remote. It's very difficult to instill that kind of DNA. And Dan and Casey, our first few hires, and also Adam, you know, we'd always they wanted to be in an office space. And the 6 or 7 people that we'd hired during the pandemic, we'd always been very clear, if you're going to join us, just so you know, when the pandemic ends, we're going to be in an office. Is that cool? Yeah. So they knew, and one person left like as soon as we got an office back because they thought we weren't serious about it or that we might never do it. So we ended up March 21 trying to find a good place to try and call like our home. And again, this is me trying to do like workings out. Like we didn't have like a finance person in the team. I'm still trying to figure out, okay, well, can we afford this? How much is it going to cost us? Business rates were a new thing because in WeWork it was all included. So again, I'm still learning all this stuff. No one's teaching you this. Yeah. I got in contact with someone called Atul Bansal, who owns Sheila Bird Group, and they do incredible like interior designs like around Manchester, and really, really well-known guy, really likable guy. And he told us, actually we got in touch with him because we were going to take a place in the Northern Quarter that had just been recently refurbished. And I asked him to come and have a look at it to do the interiors for us. And he came and had a look, and he told us that he had an office space right opposite the road in Stevenson Square, completely vacant. It was 3 times bigger. He'll do a deal for us. Would we like to have a look at it? So we were like, sure. So we went over the road, went upstairs into this office building, and the office building had obviously been like deserted for like a year and a half because of the pandemic. There was no one in there. It was like a ghost building. And we went into the top floor, and there was like a tent in the middle of the floor where like someone had been like like pitching up for like a few weeks. The floor was like mustard yellow, but had this awesome balcony overlooking Stevenson Square. And it needed a lot of work. Like the windows were like single glazed. Like in the winter it was freezing cold, in the summer it was too hot. The toilet doors were like saloon doors from a Western, like hanging off the hinges. But that was like kind of perfect. So they did a good deal for us, and we took that. And then that became like the home for Serotonin for like the next 2 years. And again, it gave us the ability to just add more people into the team without having to spend an extra money on a desk like you would at WeWork. Yeah. But yeah, like looking back, it was a wild office because it was a huge studio space, like 3,000 square foot, like way too big for what we needed. You went to,
I love that office. Yeah, it was great.
It was great. And we built a bar because you have to have that as an agency, obviously, and you have to have some bean bags around. And we made it our home, and it was great.
What was this around the time? Like, were you really into health and fitness at this time, or was this? I know you went for a bit of a transformation, didn't you? I think did you break your arm, and that was kind of something that changed.
So I think I'd never properly been into like health and fitness. I'd like joined gyms, but never properly actually like followed a program, ate cleanly, did 20,000 steps a day. Yeah, it was always like go to the gym, try and lift weights, don't really know what I'm doing. And then it must have been like 2018. I remember I got on a night out stupidly. I fell over and broke my arm. And I remember I was in a cast all summer. So like from like June through to like September, I was in a cast, couldn't do anything. Then I had to have surgery twice to get it sorted out. And I just remember like thinking like I've absolutely wasted so much time just like not making the best use of like what I've got in terms of like my body. So I was like, right, okay, as soon as I come out of this cast, I'm going to join CrossFit because I knew that at least that way there's programming already sorted. I don't need to worry about like thinking about anything. I can just turn up and they can tell me what to do because I heard about it from friends. And then also, they'll teach you all the movements that you need to know to do anything. So yeah, the cast came off, joined CrossFit, and I was really happy about that. And then that kind of like set me on like a bit of a journey, like understanding like how to like lift weights, how to train, kind of out what to eat. Again, I didn't do it properly. And then when the pandemic ended, I got into a relationship and I did what most people do when they get happy in a relationship, which is put on weight.
Yeah.
And I think I was like 77 kg at the time. So it's huge. Like I'm only like 5'7", so like that's a lot of weight to be carrying around.
Yeah.
I remember like one Christmas I was looking at like some photos of myself and I was like, oh my God, is that me? Like genuinely like little like pudgy cheeks.
Yeah.
And so I knew a guy called Mark Ross, who was a instructor at Barry's, and he just did incredible transformations. So I got in touch with him and I was like, right, sort me out. And yeah, that's what kind of like led that on. So
can you go back to that time, like your business is taking off and I guess you got to the point, I did the same, like thought, I'm an absolute mess, I need to sort my life out. Like what was the relationship, do you think, between your business and your healthiness at that time?
I think a lot of it's down to like time management and excitement, and you probably know as well, like sometimes when your business is going through like a large growth period, you get completely caught up in it, you get swept away. And yeah, like the pandemic was bad for me anyway. I remember being on like if you speak to Claire, she'll tell you the amount of calls that we would have where I'm just there eating like a Wagamama's or a Nando's on a video call. Like it was unreal. And yeah, so I think it's quite easy when you're going through that period of growth to forget about everything else that's important that you need to do. Again, I don't think I was mentally wired to have it set in anyway. I was just kind of programmed. Like I would wake up at 7 a.m, go to the office, and work hard, and then I'd order like delivery at lunchtime because I was working through lunch. Because again, when the pandemic ended and we were going into this kind of big growth phase, it was really hard to recruit people. Yeah. Even harder to recruit people that wanted to be in an office. So we had all this influx of new business coming in because people wanted to work with an e-commerce agency, but we couldn't find enough staff to do it. So like super time poor, spending more time in the office, and then just eating crap. Yeah. And yeah, it's only kind of going to go one way, isn't it? I think, yeah, if I could look back then, I'd probably do things a bit differently. But again, I try and think about when I'd find time to do that, and I can't, right? Yeah.
But then you found time. Like, how was that when you started that?
I found time. I think it's just a realignment of priorities, isn't it? Knowing that I didn't want to be 77 kg and 5'7" for a long time. I wanted to be proud, and I also thought, like, when I'm approaching my 30th birthday, like I've never been in the best shape of my life. That's a good target to do. And I think like, okay, now we've hired a few people. We've got an established business. We've been going for like 2-3 years at this point. Everything seems okay. I can now spend a bit more of my time investing in my actual self. And again, I think I was always able to do that, but I think one is like the accountability. So being accountable to someone, if it's like a personal trainer or like a group fitness class or something like that, is hugely important. And then also just the knowledge around how and when to train, and understanding like what you need to do, that you don't need to be in the gym every single day or twice a day to actually get results. And just go to the gym 3 or 4 times a week and just not have delivery at lunch.
Yeah, that's a big help. I think as well, you tell yourself, or I used to anyway, like convince myself, okay, I don't have time for the gym because I'm so busy at work. And I think you get into this cycle of just convincing yourself that that's the excuse. And it's an hour and a half, 2 hours where you definitely can go to the gym or whatever it is, look after yourself. And actually, I think the business massively benefits from you being healthy. And I think the people around you do as well. I think that's the thing that I've noticed. You're just happier. Yeah. So everyone else benefits around you.
Well, I think definitely on those points where the business definitely benefits from you being like healthier and happier, not least because you're able to think more clearly, but also because you feel more proud about like what it is you've built. And if you're proud about it, then that's going to radiate to the people around you, and they can see that. It'd be really difficult, I think, for people to like look up to, and like, you're trying to give instruction or give people advice, and it's like, well, you're not following anything yourself. So how does that work?
Yeah, they wouldn't. Yeah. And I think the other thing, I guess, is if you are building this for yourself and you can't spend some time on yourself because of it, and guess what? What are you doing it for? if you're not going to benefit, your actual body's not going to benefit from you having your own business and being able to have that time. Like, I just don't see how that serves a long-term purpose.
Yeah, that's something I thought about more and more, right? Is the importance that, like, you might be on a journey building business for 3, 5, 8, 10, 15 years, but it's not a really good journey if, like, you're working, like, consistently throughout that 10 years just on the business, just to sell it at the end of it or exit at the end of it, and look back and just realize you spent 10 years working. Yeah. You didn't invest in yourself. You didn't do anything nice with your family. You didn't contribute to anything with your friends. It's not really that much of a good period of life to reflect on.
It's not a good business plan, is it? And what you spoke a lot about people and culture. Like, what was, as you're getting a little bit bigger, something that I noticed, like the culture can kind of slip away, and every now and again, how did you hire the right people to maintain that culture that you wanted?
I think it's an ongoing challenge that we have. I think hats off to any business that can grow and retain that culture, because again, like you know as well, the culture is set by the people at the top or the people that are there first, but then the more people that you bring in underneath it, the further that your kind of sphere of influence can reach those people. Yeah. So then you're relying on the department heads or the managers or the execs to try and bring them into that. And we've hired a lot of people in the last 3 to 6 months alone, and I'm confident that they're probably not all 100% clued up with the culture or the values of the business, which is it's not something we need to change about, but it's difficult when you go a bit harder, and you need to rely on your closer team to try and extenuate that culture. We try and always communicate it back to the team, and we try and demonstrate it in everything that we do, whether it's to our clients or to something internally. But it does get harder as you get bigger. What
are some of the ways that have worked for you to maintain the culture?
So Claire's really good at this. This is definitely Claire's area.
Not on a spreadsheet.
No. I'm very much like, if everyone's a robot, perfect. Whereas Claire's like, no, we need good people who are. So every Friday, Claire will host a This Week, Next Week. And I think we've been doing that for about 6 months now. And that's a really helpful way to get everybody in the business sat around a TV screen on a Friday morning, wherever they are in the world. And then we'll present really good work that's happened in the business from the last week. So if people in creative are working on something that media they don't know about, or if the social team are doing stuff that the account management team aren't aware of, we can present that and everyone can see what people are up to. We then also celebrate anything good that's happened in the previous week. So it could be that we've won a new client, or it could be that we've been listed for another award. And again, people in an exec team might not know that these good things are happening. And then we'll share what's happening next week. So am I going to a pitch? Is there a new person starting? Do we have a social event coming up? And then it's just a really good way of, it takes 15 minutes, just bring everybody up to speed in terms of what's happening within the business in that week.
And what do you think kills culture?
Lack of communication, firstly. So again, when you asked about like how do we try and grow the business and keep the culture, the biggest challenge to that is, I think, that initial communication about how we want the values of the business to be communicated from myself and Claire down through the team. So a lack of communication is going to kill the culture, because you begin isolating different people or different departments, and then they go off starting doing their own things remotely, right? And that's where your culture starts to crumble.
Yeah, 100%. And you said before a bit about taking the role of the bad cop. What does that look like? What are some of those tough conversations that you have to have? And
yeah, I think in Serotonin, I'm really lucky that I've got a co-founder in Claire, because we can play the different roles. I know lots of people who are solo founders of businesses who've grown incredible businesses, and I think they've done an amazing job, and I've got no idea how they do it, because they have to play that role, but they have to play both roles by themselves.
Yeah.
And it must be really difficult, right? Whereas we're able to play good cop, bad cop. So if there's a challenge with an employee, like usually like I'm the one who's the angry person or the upset person. Claire's like the hug and it's okay, we can do better, we'll find a way through it. But again, maybe we're just playing into our roles a bit easier.
And have you always been comfortable in those tough conversations, or is that something you've learned to get better at?
No, I hate them. Like, I hate any conversation where I've had to like dismiss someone from work, and I always think about whenever I got sacked. Every single time I think, God, this is how I'm going to make this person feel. So it's horrible. It might get easier maybe like as you get on doing it, or maybe as we get bigger and I get further away from that person, maybe because there's less emotion to it, but it doesn't feel any better.
Yeah.
I don't like doing it.
Yeah.
But it comes with the job, doesn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. I think you said as well, you've got to hire slow, fire fast.
Yeah.
And it's just part of the job. I think if you want to protect your culture, then you do have to get rid of people, and you have to.
Yeah. And we've learned the hard way with that as well. Like when we had an influx of new business during 2021, 2022, we hired really fast and we hired really wrong. And we hired the wrong people, either because they weren't the right people for the tools, so they weren't demonstrably good at the skills we needed, or they weren't the right culture fit because they didn't buy into the culture, or they didn't want to contribute towards it, or because they weren't quite the right fit for the team. And then you're kind of playing up in your mind, right, okay, well, I might need this person and I have a role for them to fill, but then is the long-term damage going to be worse than the short-term value that they're going to add? You kind of have to act quite quickly on that.
Yeah, and that's something, does that play on you all the time? Like, I'm constantly thinking that and how we manage that on a bigger scale as we grow. Like, because I guess where other people in the business need to start hiring people, and I'm not involved anymore in that hiring process. How do you teach some of the other people in the business those parts?
I think you need to really make sure that the people who you're giving that ability to hire, you need to make sure that they are well immersed within the culture that you want to drive within the business. So I think we have a really decent heads of department team, and they've all been with us for plus 3-4 years. So they understand me and Claire, they understand what we like in a person, and they understand what the business needs. I feel like if we let other people start hiring and bringing people in, I don't think that they would have a good idea on the right candidates of what we actually need.
Yeah. And so how did that kind of manifest itself when you were looking to acquire another business?
So I think when we started to look to acquire, that came around not initially because we wanted to acquire first. It's because I realized that I wanted to have a different kind of agency and be doing a different type of role for the next 5-6 years compared to what I had been doing for the last 5 years. So I think in November last year, we nearly lost like a good 30% of our clients. So 3 big clients that made up about 10% each of our total turnover. And I remember in that week, it was horrible. It all happened in the space of 4 days.
Really?
We had 2 clients say that we had to repitch to retain them next year, and it's going to be a competitive pitch. And again, they're good clients. We've been working with them for 3 years, so fine. Obviously, they would have to go out to tender again. And then we had one other client who just served notice on us, all within 4 days of each other.
All with similar reasons, or?
So two of them were because they wanted us to repitch, because we'd been working with them for 3 years and they hadn't gone out to tender again in that period. Right. So I can't really argue with that.
Yeah.
Like, fair enough. And then the other one was just a straight termination, just because they had a new CMO come in. Right. We'd been working with them for 12 months. The new CMO came in and they wanted to work with an agency that they had previously, which happens all the time.
Yeah.
Wrongly or rightly, and fine. But again, ironically, that client, we ended up continuing to work with them because the agency they brought in weren't able to deliver about 30% of the work that we had started doing with that client anyway. So that kind of came around and bit them. So that was quite good. And then the other 2 clients who also not served notice, but said that we had to repitch, we ended up winning back anyway. So again, everything worked out in the end. But I just remember it was a really stressful week for me and Dan Wilson, who was one of our account directors, because this was all just happening to us all at the same time, and it meant that we had to now put together some really like 10 out of 10 pitches to try and retain these clients, to try and keep them alive for next year. And we did, and we won them. But I remember just coming out of that in November, just thinking like, this is nearly broken me. Like, me and Dan are tired, we're upset. Like, and again, after you spend 3 years working with a client, I completely get the reasons why they want to go and do a repitch, because it's within their business interests. But then you do feel a bit hurt because you've got a really good relationship with them. You know, it's nothing personal. But then we've just done all this amazing work. We've given you growth year on year. We've got loads of new channels and new ideas we've implemented. Now we have to go and
justify it effectively.
Yeah. So it's an emotional thing, right?
Yeah.
So I just remember thinking, I need to try and find a different way of growing the business, because I can't do this again year on year for the next 5 years.
Yeah.
So then I started trying to find ways where we could either get funding or investment, maybe sell part of the business that we didn't like. And I started speaking to a lot of people. Started looking at private equity and venture capital, and I realized that no one really cares or wants to speak to you until you're doing over £1 million in profit.
Yeah.
And we were doing about maybe like 50% of that at the time. So I was like, right, okay, how am I going to try and find, how am I going to double the business overnight effectively to try and find a different way of growing it? And I had a conversation with a good friend of mine called Cam, who introduced me to a guy called Luke that was running an agency, which was totally remote. They've been growing it, again, kind of off the back of the pandemic. They had about 20 staff worldwide, so some in the Philippines, some in Lisbon, some in Italy, some in Eastern Europe, and some in Finland. And they did a very similar thing to what we do, so heavy on e-commerce, but a lot in email as well, which is an area that we didn't really tackle. And I met with Luke, heard his story, heard what they built, and we kind of realized that there was a really cool opportunity here where if we were to acquire them, cross-sell our services, we could then hit that £1 million mark quite comfortably and quite quickly. But then what we could also do is then start to pass a lot of their clients into our team at Serotonin, where we had a little bit more capacity, but then we start to bring in more people, build that team out, and then part of their remote staff, we could then start to exit them from that business. But then that created a bigger infrastructure at Serotonin and makes us actually a bigger agency on paper as well. So that then became the game plan of how we were then going to start to get towards this £1 million mark. And that's where the conversation around actually making that acquisition became real, because Luke and I kind of aligned our ambitions, and obviously I shared it with Claire and he shared it with his business partner Matt, and we all got together, and there was a really good culture match there, based around transparency, based around being really, really hardworking, and based around trying to deliver a really good service level of class for our clients. And yeah, we did a nice matrix, and we could see that the guys at Unparalleled had grown an incredible business, but there was so much opportunity to be able to upsell to their clients what we had built, because we built a really, really robust process around how to grow out and how to scale a client. And I think they've done a really good job of just getting the clients in, running the campaigns for them. But then what we wanted to do is apply like a really good 36 month forecast, because our client times, the amount of time clients spend with us is on average about 3.5 years. So we have a really good job at really good job at keeping clients. And we knew that if we could kind of bring them into that, then it would do wonders for their business as well. So that's where the acquisition conversation started.
And then during that process, going into a merger or acquisition with no experience, what?
Best thing I did was hire a CFO.
Did you?
Yeah.
So did they kind of hold your hand through that process?
So we hired, so I don't know how we would have done it without Lisa, who's our CFO. We still probably be like halfway through due diligence or something like that. But Lisa came from a background where she had done multiple M&As for marketing agencies in the past. And yeah, it just so happened that like the stars aligned, and she was looking for a new opportunity at the time. Claire knew her from a previous role in the past as well. So we kind of already had that stamp that, okay, well, she's kind of our person. She fits the right characteristics of Serotonin.
Yeah.
Had a few chats with her. And at the time, again, this is probably early March 2025. So we didn't have a clear idea of like whether or not we were going to do an acquisition yet. I just knew that we needed to actually have like a proper CFO role fractionally, like 1 day a week, 2 days a week, just to fix everything in Xero, because for the last 6 years it was me, and I've got no finance background, right? I came from geology, and then I did sales, and now I'm like issuing invoices and having conversations with our accountant, and it's not how a real business should be when you're like 25 plus people, right? But at the time, it's like, well, I kind of get it. It's not a core area of my business. I can focus on, and can get by with it. So we brought her in just to be fractional CFO on 1 or 2 days a week. And I think in her second week, I was like, have you got any experience doing M&A? And she obviously has. And then she kind of got thrown down this rabbit hole of due diligence and identifying the best way that the M&A could work. She got introduced to the guys at Unparalleled. She really made that whole process 10 times easier.
And what were you learning? Were you learning this was something that you want to do again? You have the appetite to do again, or was it like, I'm not doing it? Yeah, it was a bit too scary. That I'm not doing that again.
So I think immediately afterwards, because again we get on with the guys at Unparalleled, and they've got an amazing team, and they're all integrating really nicely. Like the culture's brilliant on that level, and I think immediately afterwards, like, right, okay, well, if we kind of replicate what we've done, but maybe on a smaller scale, we can start to do a bit of a roll up here and bring in other agencies or other remote e-com agencies similar to them that have kind of spawned off the back of the pandemic.
Yeah.
They've got really, really good individuals in their team, but then they might have remote staff all around the world. We can then start to house them within Serotonin, and that could be a really good way of doing a roll up. So that's kind of what the next focus is. But as time goes on, I think we're only about 2 months into the process of fully integrating the guys that I'm paralleled. I think there's probably more things that we need to spend time on doing now instead of focusing on the next acquisition, perhaps. Yeah. Actually just making sure that everybody is happy and that we are aligned and we do have a good case study to actually go and bring on more businesses into the team.
Would you say that's been the biggest challenge of the acquisition?
Yeah, I don't think calling it like the biggest challenge is like the fair, because I think it's actually been, again, because we've all been aligned from day one in terms of like our ambitions for what we want to do and over the next 5 years. So there are no bigger challenges or headaches than like the day-to-day of running a business anyway. Yeah. They're definitely kind of like obstacles. They're new obstacles because like we said, like, it's not the same as bringing on like 2 or 3 employees and you can just bring them under your own processes and you're under your own guidance. You have to bring them in, you have to adopt part of their processes, then you have to show them your own, and then you have to find a way of like breaking theirs down a little bit and then rebuilding it with ours behind it. So I think it's probably a bit more time required and a bit more like time considerate than what I guess I'd initially thought.
And so what's the next step for you? Is this going to be a plan that you want to do more but take your time with a little bit more?
I think we're definitely on that journey to doing more. And again, I think when an opportunity comes past, we're all quite tenacious and we're not going to pass up any good opportunity that we see. And I think that we have a decent ambition in terms of where we want to get to in 5 years. And part of that is going to have to be taking on some new acquisitions along the way. Yeah. But I want to make sure that we have the right, the right playbook on how we do it. And unfortunately, we might have to use this as a bit of a guinea pig to make sure that we do it right. But that means that in the future, it'll be more smooth every single time that we do it. What
knowledge would you take from your position now to sort of early on in your career?
Have more patience, be nicer to people. I think also don't listen to people who think they know better. I think genuinely, that within my industry specifically, I'm not sure about yours, like lots of people chat about how to do certain things a certain way, and then it's quite easy just to think that whatever you're doing is wrong. But the best agencies that I know that are kind of coming up now that I see within Manchester, being in for like less than 2 or 3 years, are people who are doing things completely different to what like I would have thought was correct, or they're selling services that I didn't think was possible, or they're embracing different technologies. And I definitely don't think that we would be where we are as far as taking all the advice that people have said to me and listening to it and then implementing it. Yeah, I think that when you're trying to build your own agency, you kind of have to make your own path for it.
Yeah, 100%. And how important is being consistent at that, do you think?
100%. I think the consistency and the consistency is going to win at the end of the day. But again, I think you still need to try and find motivation to do it. So if you're 100% consistent, but then you're not being able to give yourself like the breathing room to actually appreciate that journey that you're on, you will lose the motivation for why you're doing it.
100%. And if you were giving people advice on how they can raise their floor and bring some of that consistency in, given sort of your background and the journey you've been on, what would that be?
Can you repeat that?
So just talk. So the podcast is called Raise the Floor, and the thinking behind it is kind of you don't have to be a 10 every day. It's more about consistency and how you sort of raise that, as opposed to raising the ceiling, you raise the floor and bring consistency into it. Like, what would your advice for people be to raise the floor?
So I always think that like it's very difficult to be like 0% consistent one day and then like 100% consistent like from there on out. I always like being able to look back, and again, I love like data and things like that, and like Strava is really good when it comes to like looking at consistency. And I remember like looking back at like previous like workouts and things like that, and you can see if I go back like 5 years, it's like the odd workout like every now and again, or like every other week. And then I look back like 4 years ago, and then you can start to see them building up.
Yeah.
And then if I look back like last year, like every single day. And I think that that's the difference. Like consistency doesn't happen overnight. It's something you need to start to program in. And then when you look back, you can actually see you're building it into your daily routine. But I think that there's a big misconception around people expecting that consistency is just something that you decide to do and then it happens overnight. I think you actually need to program it in slowly, as opposed to just waking up tomorrow and thinking, right, okay, I'm going to be consistent. I'm going to do this every single day.
Yeah, and I think it's easier for people to see that on Strava because it's kind of there as black and white data. I think it's harder to apply in business because you don't really have those that you've not done a workout today as proof. So I think people find that hard in business to build that consistency up. What other advice would you give your younger self?
I think similar to what I said before, I think listen to less people. I feel like if I had been more like strongly convicted about how I feel about certain things, the ways I see things working out, then I think I'll probably be a bit further along. But again, I think it's easy when you're younger to like listen to too many people because you're a bit naive and you're always told that other people know a bit better. Yeah. When in reality, I think like now, like having run like the business for like 6 years, like there's still a big part of me that's kind of just making things up as I go along in terms of how I think things should go. Yeah,
I think that's one of the biggest misconceptions. That I think that's what everyone's doing now. Like everyone at the top of businesses are making it up as they go along. There's no set playbook.
There's no set blueprint for it, right? Yeah. And especially like in a service-based business where like if we're all selling the same product, then there might be things that you can kind of blueprint and copy. Yeah. But if it's a service-based business where people is the product that you're selling or time is, then you can't apply the same thing that's happened here into this business because everybody's completely different. Yeah. And then that's where like the culture piece is so important behind it, because how people in this business feel is completely different to how people in this business feel. So whatever your driving forces you're putting into these guys isn't going to work necessarily for these guys here.
100%. Dom, appreciate your time. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks so much, Phil. Cheers.